The Boscombe Valley Mystery. One morning, my wife and I were having breakfast. The maid brought a telegram. It was from Sherlock Holmes. It said, "Do you have 2 days free? I was called from West England about the Boscombe Valley tragedy. Please come with me. The air and view are very good. Leave Paddington at 11:15." My wife looked at me and asked, "Will you go?" I said, "I do not know. I have a lot of work." She said, "Anstruther can do your work. You look pale. A change will help you. You like Holmes's cases." I said, "I would be unkind if I did not like them. They helped me before. I must pack now. I have only half an hour." I was quick to travel because of my time in Afghanistan. I had few things to take. In less time than I said, I was in a cab going to Paddington Station. Holmes was walking on the platform. He looked tall and thin. His long grey cloak and cap made him look even taller. He said, "Thank you for coming, Watson. It helps me to have someone I trust. Local help is often bad or unfair. You take the two corner seats. I will get the tickets." We had the carriage alone except for many papers Holmes brought. He read and took notes until we passed Reading. Then he made all the papers into a bag ball and threw it on the rack. He asked, "Have you heard about the case?" I said, "No, I have not read the papers for days." He said, "The London papers do not have much. I read all the recent papers to know the details. It seems to be one of those simple cases that are very hard." I said, "That sounds strange." He said, "It is true. Strange things are clues. The more normal a crime is, the harder to solve. But they have a strong case against the dead man's son." I asked, "Is it a murder?" He said, "They think so. I will not believe until I see for myself. I will tell you what I know in a few words. Boscombe Valley is a country place near Ross, in Hertfordshire. The biggest landowner there is Mr. John Turner. He made money in Australia and came back years ago. One farmer he had, called Hatherley, was rented to Mr. Charles McCarthy. He was also from Australia. They knew each other there. So it was natural they wanted to live near each other. Turner was richer, so McCarthy rented from him, but they were friends and often together. McCarthy had one son, 18 years old. Turner had one daughter, 18 years old. Neither had a wife. They stayed away from the local English families and lived quietly. The McCarthys liked sports and often went to races nearby. McCarthy had two servants, a man and a girl. Turner had a big household, at least 6 people. This is all I know about the families. Now the facts. On June 3rd, last Monday, Mr. McCarthy left his house at Hatherley at about 3 in the afternoon. He walked to Boscombe Pool. This is a small lake made by the stream in Boscombe Valley. That morning he had been out with his servant in Ross. He told the servant to hurry because he had an important meeting at 3. He never came back alive from that meeting. The walk from Hatherley farmhouse to Boscombe Pool is a quarter of a mile. 2 people saw him on that way. One was an old woman, but her name is not told. The other was William Crowder. He's a gamekeeper who works for Mr. Turner. Both said Mr. McCarthy was walking alone. William Crowder also said that a few minutes after he saw Mr. McCarthy, he saw Mr. McCarthy's son, James, going the same way. James had a gun under his arm. William thought the father was still in sight and the son was behind him. He did not think much until he heard about the tragedy in the evening. The 2 McCarthys were seen after William lost sight of them. Boscombe Pool is surrounded by many trees. There is only a small area of grass and reeds near the lake. A 14-year-old girl, Patience Moran, lives there. Her father takes care of the Boscombe Valley estate lodge. She was picking flowers in the woods. She said she saw Mr. McCarthy and his son near the lake. They seemed to be having a strong fight. She heard Mr. McCarthy using very strong words to his son. She saw the son raise his hand like he wanted to hit his father. She was scared. She ran home and told her mother she saw the two McCarthys fighting near Boscombo. She was afraid they would fight badly. Soon after, young Mr. McCarthy ran to the lodge. He said he found his father dead in the woods. He asked for help from the lodgekeeper. He was very upset. He had no gun or hat. His right hand and sleeve had fresh blood. They followed him and found the dead body on the grass near the pool. The head was badly hit by a heavy blunt object. The injuries looked like they were made by the butt of the son's gun. The gun was found a few steps from the body. Because of this, the young man was arrested immediately. On Tuesday, the inquest said it was willful murder. On Wednesday, he was taken to the magistrates in Ross. They sent the case to the next assizes. These are the main facts told at the coroner and police court. I can hardly think of a stronger case, I said. If there's a crime with clear proof, this is it. Circumstantial proof is tricky, said Holmes, thinking hard. It looks like it shows one thing clearly, but if you change how you look at it, it may show something else clearly too. The young man looks very bad in this case, and he may be the one who did it. But some people near there, like Miss Turner, who is the daughter of the landowner, think he is not guilty. They hired Lestrade, who you know from the Study in Scarlet case, to help him. Lestrade was confused, so he sent the case to me. That is why two men our age are going west fast instead of eating breakfast at home. I said I think the facts are clear. You will not find much new here. He laughed and said, nothing is more tricky than a fact that looks clear. Maybe we will find other facts that Lestrade did not see. You know me well. I do not boast when I say I will prove if he is right or wrong by ways Lestrade cannot use or understand. For example, I see your bedroom window is on the right side. I wonder if Lestrade would have noticed that. I asked, how do you know? Holmes said, I know you. You are neat like a soldier. You shave every morning. You use sunlight to shave now. But your left side has less light, so your left side is less shaved. It looks messy near your jaw. A man like you would not like that. This is a small example of how I look and think. This is my skill. It may help in this case. There are small things from the inquest to think about. I asked, what are they? He said he was not arrested right away, but after coming back to Hatherley Farm. When the police told him he was a prisoner, he said he was not surprised and he deserved it. This made the jury sure he was guilty. I said, that was like saying he was guilty. Holmes said no, because then he said he was innocent. That is strange after all the bad facts, I said. Holmes said no, that is the bright part. Even if he is innocent, he knows he looks bad. If he was surprised or angry, that would be strange. A clever man might act like that, but he accepted it calmly. That shows he is either innocent or very strong. About saying he deserved it, that is natural because he was by his dead father. That day he had a fight with his father, even raised his hand to hit him, says the girl who saw. Saying sorry shows he is a good man, not a bad one. I shook my head. Many men have been hanged on less proof, I said. Yes, many men have been hanged wrongly, Holmes answered. What does the young man say about this? I asked. I'm afraid his story does not help him much, but there are some points to think about. You can read it here. He took a local paper from his papers. He turned to a page and showed me the part where the young man told his story. I sat down in the corner and read carefully. It said, Mr. James McCarthy, the dead man's only son, was called to speak. He said, I was away from home for 3 days in Bristol. I came back on Monday morning, the 3rd. My father was not home then. The maids said he had gone to Ross with John Cobb, the groom. After I came back, I heard my father's carriage. I looked out and saw him get out and walk fast out of the yard. I did not know where he was going. I took my gun and walked toward Boscombo Pool to visit the rabbit place on the other side. On the way, I saw William Crowder, the gamekeeper. He said I was following my father, but he was wrong. I did not know my father was in front of me. When I was about 100 yards from the pool, I heard a cooey call. This was our usual sign. I went quickly and found my father by the pool. He looked surprised and asked me roughly what I was doing. We talked and fought. My father had a bad temper. When he got too angry, I left him and went back to the farm. After about 150 yards, I heard a loud cry behind me. I ran back and found my father dying. His head was badly hurt. I dropped my gun and held him. He died fast. I stayed with him a few minutes, then went to Mr. Turner's lodge to get help. I saw no one near my father when I came back. I do not know how he got hurt. He was not popular, cold, and serious. I don't know of anyone who hated him. I know nothing more. The coroner asked, "Did your father say anything before he died?" The witness said, "He said some words, but I only heard something about a rat." The coroner asked, "What did you think that meant?" The witness said, "I did not know. I thought he was confused." The coroner asked, "What was the last fight about?" The witness said, "I do not want to say." The coroner said, "I must ask you again." The witness said, "I really cannot tell you. I promise it is not about the sad event that happened later." The coroner said, "The court will decide. If you do not answer, it will hurt your case later." The witness said, "I still will not answer." The coroner asked, "You and your father used cooey as a sign?" The witness said, "Yes." The coroner asked, "How did he say it before he saw you and before he knew you were back from Bristol?" The witness, confused, said, "I do not know." A juryman asked, "Did you see anything strange when you came back and found your father hurt?" The witness said, "Nothing clear." The coroner asked, "What do you mean?" The witness said, "I was so upset that I only thought about my father. But I think I saw something grey on the ground to my left. It looked like a coat or cloth. When I left my father, it was gone." The coroner asked, "Do you mean it disappeared before you went for help?" The witness said, "Yes, it was gone." The coroner asked, "Can you say what it was?" The witness said, "No, I just felt something was there." The coroner asked, "How far from the body?" The witness said, "About 12 yards." The coroner asked, "How far from the wood's edge?" The witness said, "About the same." The coroner asked, "If it was removed, was it while you were close to it?" The witness said, "Yes, but I had my back to it." The examination ended. I said, "The coroner was harsh on young McCarthy. He pointed out the problem with the signal before seeing him, his refusal to say what he talked about with his father, and the strange story about his father's last words. These things are against the sun." Holmes laughed softly and lay back on the seat. "You and the coroner try to help the young man in different ways. You say he has too much imagination and not enough. Not enough if he cannot make up a reason for the fight to get sympathy. Too much if he made up the strange story about a rat and the cloth. No, I will believe the young man is telling the truth. We will see where that leads us. Now, here is my small book of poems. I will not talk more about this until we get to the place. We will eat lunch at Swindon, and we will be there in 20 minutes. It was almost 4 o'clock when, after going through the pretty Stroud Valley and over the white shining Severn River, we reached the small country town of Ross. A thin, quick, sly man waited on the platform. He wore a light brown coat and leather pants to fit the country place, but I knew him easily. It was Lestrade from Scotland Yard. With him, we went to the Hereford Arms Hotel, where a room was ready for us. Lestrade said, I got a carriage ready. I knew you would want to see the crime place soon. Holmes said, that was very kind. It is all about the weather. Lestrade looked confused. I don't understand. Holmes said, look at the barometer. It is 29. No wind, no clouds. I have many cigarettes to smoke here, and the sofa is better than usual country hotels. I don't think I will use the carriage tonight. Lestrade laughed kindly. You have probably made your mind up from the papers, he said. The case looks very clear, and the more you look, the clearer it gets. But of course you cannot say no to a lady, and she's very sure. She knows about you and wants your help, even though I told her there is nothing you can do that I have not already tried. Look, here's her carriage at the door. Before he finished, a very beautiful young woman came quickly into the room. Her violet eyes shone, her lips were open, and her cheeks were pink. She was very excited and worried, and she did not act shy. Oh, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, she said, looking at us, and then at Holmes quickly. I am so glad you are here. I came to tell you that. I know James did not do this. I want you to start your work knowing that too. Never doubt that. We have known each other since we were children, and I know his faults better than anyone, but he's too kind to hurt anyone. The charge is silly for anyone who knows him. I hope we can help him, Miss Turner, said Holmes. You can trust me to do my best. But you have read the papers. You have made up your mind. Do you see a way to prove he is innocent? Do you believe he is innocent? I think it is very likely, Holmes said. There, she said, throwing back her head and looking at Lestrade with pride. You hear, he gives me hope. Lestrade shrugged his shoulders. I think my friend has made his decision too fast, he said. But he's right. Oh, I know he's right. James did not do it. About the fight with his father, I am sure he would not talk to the coroner before I was part of it. How? Holmes asked. It is time to be honest. James and his father often fought because of me. Mr. McCarthy wanted us to marry. James and I love each other like brother and sister, but he is young and has not seen much of life yet, so he did not want to marry. We fought about that. I am sure that fight was about this. And your father, Holmes asked, did he want you to marry James? No, he did not want that either. Only Mr. McCarthy wanted it. She blushed quickly when Holmes looked at her with his sharp eyes. Thank you for telling me this, said Holmes. Can I see your father if I come tomorrow? I am afraid the doctor will not allow it. The doctor? Yes, have you not heard? Poor father has been weak for years, but now he is very sick. He is in bed. Dr. Willows says he is a wreck and very nervous. Mr. McCarthy was the only man alive who knew my father from the old days in Victoria. Ah, in Victoria, that is important. Yes, at the mines. Yes, where Mr. Turner made his money. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Miss Turner. You have helped me a lot. You will tell me if you have news tomorrow. You will visit James in prison, right? If you do, please tell him I know he's innocent. I will, Miss Turner. I must go now. Father is very sick, and he misses me if I leave. Goodbye, and good luck with your work. She left the room quickly, and we heard her carriage wheels on the street. After a few minutes, Lestrade said seriously, I am ashamed of you, Holmes. Why do you give hopes you will not keep? I am not soft, but that is cruel. I think I can help clear James McCarthy, said Holmes. Do you have permission to see him in prison? Yes, for you and me only. Then I will change my mind about going out. We still have time to catch a train to Hereford and see him tonight. Plenty of time. Then let's go, Watson. It may be slow, but I will be back in 2 hours. I went to the station with them. Then I walked in the small town streets. I came back to the hotel. I lay on the sofa. I tried to read a yellow book. The story was very weak. It was not like the deep mystery we had. I could not keep my mind on the story. I thought more about the day's events. If the young man told the truth, what bad thing happened after he left his father? What was so terrible that he came running back? It was something very bad. What could it be? Could the injuries tell me something? I rang for the weekly paper. It had the inquest report. The doctor said the back part of the left side of the head was broken by a heavy hit with a blunt thing. I touched my own head there. The hit came from behind. This helped the young man a little because when they fought, they faced each other. But the father could have turned his back before the hit. It was good to tell Holmes this. Then there was the strange last word about the rat. What did it mean? It was not madness. People dying from a sudden hit don't go mad like that. It was more like a way to say how he died. But what did it mean? I thought hard. Then the grey cloth young McCarthy saw. If true, the killer dropped part of his coat while running. Then the killer came back and took it while the sun was close, with his back turned. So many strange and unlikely things. I understood why Lestrade felt this way, but I trusted Holmes a lot. I did not lose hope because new facts made him sure that young McCarthy was innocent. It was late when Holmes came back. He was alone. Lestrade stayed in the town. The glass is still high, he said. It is important it does not rain before we see the place, but a man should be fresh and sharp from this work. I did not want to do it tired from travel. I saw young McCarthy. What did you learn? Nothing. Sherlock Holmes changed when he had a good clue. People who knew the quieter thinker from Baker Street would not know him then. His face turned red and dark. His eyebrows were tight and black lines. His eyes shone hard and bright. His face looked down. His shoulders bent, and his lips were tight. The veins in his long neck stood out like ropes. His nose holes got big like an animal ready to chase. His mind was only on the case. Questions or words did not reach him, or only made him growl quickly. He moved fast and quiet along the path through the fields and woods to Boscombo. The ground was wet and soft. There were many footmarks on the path and grass. Sometimes Holmes walked fast, sometimes stopped. Once he walked around in the field. Lestrade and I followed him. Holmes did not care about us. I watched him because I knew every move had a meaning. Boscombo is a small water place with reeds about 50 yards wide. It is at the border of Hatherley Farm and Mr. Turner's Ridge Park. On the other side of the pool we saw Mr. Turner's big house with red-pointed roofs. Near Hatherley the woods were thick and there was a wet grass strip between the trees and the reeds. Lestrade showed us where the body was found. The ground was so wet I could see the marks of the man falling. Holmes's face was eager. He looked carefully at the grass. He moved around like a dog smelling a scent and then looked at Lestrade. "Why did you go into the pool?" he asked. "I used a rake to look for a weapon or a clue. But how? Oh, no time. Your left foot with a twist is all over the place. Even a mole could follow it, and it ends in the reeds. It would be easy if I came before the others stepped on it like buffalo. The group with the lodge-keeper covered the tracks near the body, but here are 3 different marks of the same feet." He took out a lens and lay down to see better, talking mostly to himself. "These are young McCarthy's feet. Twice he walked and once he ran fast, so his shoe marks are deep. This matches his story. He ran when he saw his father down. These are the father's feet walking up and down. What is this? The back of a gun," while the son listened. "And this? Ha! What do we have? Tiptoes. Tiptoes. Square boots. Very strange. They come, go, come again. That must be to get the cloak. Where did they come from?" He followed the tracks up and down, sometimes losing and sometimes finding them. We went into the woods under a big beech tree, the biggest near there. Holmes went to the other side and lay down again, happy. He turned leaves and sticks, put dust in an envelope, and used his lens to look at the ground and tree bark. He found a sharp stone in the moss and kept it. Then he walked through the woods to the main road, where the tracks stopped. It was an interesting case, he said, back to normal. The grey house on the right is probably the lodge. I will talk to Moran there and maybe write a note. After that, we can go back to lunch. You can walk to the cab. I will come soon. It took about 10 minutes before we got back to our cab and drove into Ross. Holmes still had the stone he found in the wood. This may interest you, Lestrade, he said, showing the stone. This was the murder weapon. I see no marks on it, said Lestrade. There are none, Holmes answered. How do you know it was used? Asked Lestrade. The grass was growing under it. It had only been there a few days. There was no place where it was taken from. It matches the injuries. There is no other weapon. And the murderer? Lestrade asked. He's a tall man, left-handed, limps on his right leg, wears thick boots and a grey cloak, smokes Indian cigars, uses a cigar holder, and carries a small knife in his pocket. There are more clues, but this is enough to help us look. Lestrade laughed. I'm still not sure. Theories are good, but we have a real British jury to deal with. We shall see, said Holmes calmly. You use your way, I use mine. I will work this afternoon and probably go back to London tonight. And leave the case unfinished? No, finished. But the mystery, it is solved. Who was the criminal? The man I described. But who is he? It should not be hard to find. This is not a big place. Lestrade shrugged. I am practical. I cannot go looking for a left-handed man with a bad leg. Scotland Yard would laugh at me. Okay, Holmes said quietly. I gave you a chance. Here are your rooms. Goodbye. I will write before I leave. After leaving Lestrade, we went to our hotel. Lunch was ready. Holmes was quiet and thoughtful with a worried look. Sit down, Watson, he said when the table was clear. Let me talk. I don't know what to do and want your advice. Light a cigar and listen. Please do. Well, in this case, two things about young McCarthy's story stood out. They struck me as good for him, but you against him. One is that his father cried cooey before seeing him. The other is the strange dying word about a rat. He said some words, but the son only heard that. Our work must start from these two things, and we must believe the boy's telling the truth. What about the cooey? Well, it was not for the son. The son was in Bristol. As far as the father knew, it was just chance that he heard it. The cooey was for the person he was meeting. Cooey is an Australian call. It is used between Australians. So the man McCarthy was meeting probably had been in Australia. And the rat? Holmes took a folded paper from his pocket and opened it on the table. This is a map of Victoria Colony, he said. I asked for it to be sent from Bristol last night. He put his hand on part of the map. What do you see? Arat, I said. And now? He lifted his hand. Ballarat. Yes, that was the word the man said, but the son only heard the last two syllables. The man was trying to say the name of his killer, someone from Ballarat. That is amazing, I said. Holmes said, it is clear now. I have narrowed the search a lot. The killer must be an Australian from Ballarat who had a grey cloak, just like the son said. Certainly, I agreed. And someone who knew the area well, because the pool can only be reached from the farm or the estate. Strangers wouldn't wander there. Exactly. Today, when we went to the scene, I found small details about the killer's personality. I told them to that fool Lestrade. But how did you find them, I asked. You know my way. I watch small things closely. You could tell his height from his steps. His boots left unique marks. Yes, those boots were unusual. What about his limp? The right foot left a higher mark than the left. He put less weight on it because he limped. And his being left-handed? You noticed the injury was on the left side, but the blow came from behind. Only a left-handed man could do that. He waited behind the tree during the father and son meeting. I found cigar ash there. Cigar ash? Yes, I know tobacco ash as well, and could tell it was from an Indian cigar rolled in Rotterdam. And the cigar holder? The cigar's end wasn't bitten, but cut roughly. That shows he used a cigar holder and cut it with a blunt penknife. Holmes, I said, you have made a trap for this man, from which he cannot escape. You have saved an innocent life as if you cut the rope that was going to hang him. I think the culprit is... Before I could finish, the hotel waiter opened the door and said, Mr. John Turner. The man who entered was strange and impressive. He walked slowly with a limp and had bent shoulders. His hard, deep-lined face and large, strong limbs showed he had great strength and character. His tangled grey beard, hair, and thick eyebrows gave him dignity, but his face was pale white, and his lips and nose edges had a blue tint. It was clear he was suffering from a deadly long illness. Holmes said gently, Please, sit on the sofa. Did you get my note? Yes, the lodge-keeper brought it. You said you wanted to see me here to avoid scandal. I thought people would talk if I visited the hall. Why did you want to see me? The man looked at Holmes with tired, hopeless eyes, as if he already knew the answer. Yes, said Holmes, answering the look rather than the words. It is so. I know all about McCarthy. The old man sank his face in his hands. God help me, he cried, but I would not have let the young man come to harm. I give you my word that I would have spoken out if it went against him at the assizes. I am glad to hear you say so, said Holmes gravely. I would have spoken now had it not been for my dear girl. It will break her heart. It will break her heart when she hears that I am arrested. It may not come to that, said Holmes. What? I am no official agent. I understand that it was your daughter who required my presence here, and I am acting in her interests. Young McCarthy must be got off, however. I am a dying man, said old Turner. I have had diabetes for years. My doctor says it is a question whether I shall live a month. Yet I would rather die under my own roof than in a gaol. Holmes rose and sat down at the table with his pen in his hand and a bundle of paper just before him. Just let us the truth, he said. I shall jot down the facts. You will sign it, and Watson here can witness it. Then I could produce your confession at the last extremity to save young McCarthy. I promise you that I shall not use it unless it is absolutely needed. It's as well, said the old man. It's a question whether I shall live to the assizes, so it matters little to me, but I should wish to spare Alice the shock. And now I will make the thing clear to you. It has been a long time in the acting, but will not take me long to tell. You didn't know this dead man, McCarthy. He was a devil incarnate, I tell you that. God keep you out of the clutches of such a man as he. His grip has been upon me these 20 years, and he has blasted my life. I'll tell you first how I came to be in his power. It was in the early 60s at the diggings. I was a young chap then, hot-blooded and reckless, ready to turn my hand at anything. I got among bad companions, took to drink, had no luck with my claim, took to the bush, and in a word became what you would call over here a highway robber. There were 6 of us, and we had a wild, free life of it, sticking up a station from time to time, or stopping the wagons on the road to the diggings. Black Jack of Ballarat was the name I went under, and our party is still remembered in the colony as the Ballarat Gang. One day a gold convoy came down from Ballarat to Melbourne, and we lay in wait for it and attacked it. There were 6 troopers and 6 of us, so it was a close thing, but we emptied 4 of their saddles at the first volley. 3 of our boys were killed, however, before we got the swag. I put my pistol to the head of the wagon driver, who was this very man McCarthy. I wished to the Lord that I had shot him then, but I spared him, though I saw his wicked little eyes fixed on my face, as though to remember every feature. We got away with the gold, became wealthy men, and made our way over to England without being suspected. There I parted from my old pals and determined to settle down to a quiet and respectable life. I bought this estate which chanced to be in the market, and I set myself to do a little good with my money to make up for the way in which I had earned it. I married too, and though my wife died young, she left me my dear little Alice. Even when she was just a baby, her wee hand seemed to lead me down the right path as nothing else had ever done. In a word, I turned over a new leaf and did my best to make up for the past. All was going well when McCarthy laid his grip upon me. I had gone up to town about an investment, and I met him in Regent Street with hardly a coat to his back or a boot to his foot. "Here we are, Jack," says he, touching me on the arm. "We'll be as good as a family to you. There's 2 of us, me and my son, and you can have the keeping of us. If you don't, it's a fine, law-abiding country is England, and there's always a policeman within hail." Well, down they came to the West Country. There was no shaking them off, and there they have lived rent-free on my best land ever since. There was no rest for me, no peace, no forgetfulness. Turn where I would, there was his cunning grinning face at my elbow. It grew worse as Alice grew up, for he soon saw I was more afraid of her knowing my past than of the police. Whatever he wanted he must have, and whatever it was I gave him without question, land, money, houses, until at last he asked the thing which I could not give. He asked for Alice. His son, you see, had grown up, and so had my girl, and as I was known to be in weak health, it seemed a fine stroke to him that his lad should step into the whole property. But there I was firm. I would not have his cursed stock mixed with mine. Not that I had any dislike to the lad, but his blood was in him, and that was enough. I stood firm. McCarthy threatened. I braved him to do his worst. We were to meet at the pool midway between our houses to talk it over. When I went down there, I found him talking with his son, so I smoked a cigar and waited behind a tree until he was alone. But as I listened, all the black and bitter feelings inside me came up. He was telling his son to marry my daughter, without caring what she thought, as if she were a low woman from the streets. It made me mad to think that I and all I loved were controlled by such a man. Could I break the bond? I was already dying and desperate. Though my mind was clear and my body fairly strong, I knew my fate was sealed. But my memory and my girl both could be saved if I could silence that fool tongue. I did it, Mr. Holmes. I would do it again. Though I have sinned deeply, I have lived a life of suffering much. I struck him down with no more feeling than if he had been a poisonous beast. His cry brought his son back, but I had already hidden in the woods. I had to go back to get the cloak I dropped while running away. That is the true story, gentlemen, of all that happened. Well, it is not for me to judge you, said Holmes, as the old man signed the statement. I hope we never face such a temptation. I hope not, sir. What will you do now? Because of your health, I will do nothing. You know you will soon have to answer for your deed in a higher court than the assizes. I will keep your confession, and if McCarthy is condemned, I must use it. If not, no one will ever see it. Your secret will be safe, whether you live or die. Farewell, then, said the old man seriously. When you face your own death, you will find peace in knowing you helped me find mine. Shaking and tottering, he slowly left the room. God help us, said Holmes after a long silence. Why does fate play such tricks on poor helpless people? Whenever I hear a story like this, I remember Baxter's words and say, "There, but for the grace of God, goes Sherlock Holmes." James McCarthy was found not guilty at the assizes because of many objections Holmes had prepared for the defense. Old Turner lived 7 months after our meeting, but now he is dead. There's a good chance that the son and daughter will live happily together, never knowing the dark past that hangs over them.